It's your script, sir.
Well, I really want to hear. I think this is for posterity. This is so I can.
Oh, posterity.
This is so I can show my grandkids someday.
Okay.
So definitely want to hear about. I really want to, if you could tell the story about your dad and the Union shop
Coming
to America.
Coming to America.
Yeah, let's hear that one.
That's usually a good classic opening that's appeared before a lot of immigrant stories. Okay. Solomon Rosenberg was my dad, and he had greeted his long-awaited family from Europe after the First World War. He met them in Ellis Island in New York, and he brought them to Boston, Massachusetts. He had prepared for their coming, and he had provided an apartment that was furnished, and a landlady who would show the immigrant family how to acculturate in Boston, Massachusetts. He had reached some modicum of success and established a small company that made custom-made clothing for men, suits and overcoats. And since he had survived the labor successes in New York, and he had basically a socialist tendency, when he came to Boston, Massachusetts, he hired union people. Well, there was already an established garment business, small factories, but larger than his little loft business. They had been established in the city, and they had a marketplace. And along came Solomon Rosenberg with his talent that the education that he learned in the garment industry in New York, and he had a small manufacturing business, and I don't know how many employees there were, but there certainly were more than two himself. And he very quickly had established some customers, and he was doing reasonably well. His wife came with his two sons, and they established themselves, and I don't know how long they were here before the great experiment happened. I don't know what the timing was, but they were just about, the boys were in school already, and Sarah had started her acculturation, and the fellows from the other garment business approached Solomon and told him that this really wasn't working for them. Would he, having union help was disruptive, and they would suggest that he no longer had whatever this help was that he had, and shouldn't advertise himself as a union factory. I don't know what the timing was, but of course Solomon said, it is not such a good idea. I am up. And he was a very gentle man. He wasn't a person who was particularly aggressive. Yeah. So I guess there was another period of peace and quiet. And again, he was approached. After the second time that he had been approached and told that having a union shop was disruptive, there was shortly after the second discussion and meeting, there was a fire in the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, the word went out that he better not come back to the city and reestablish himself. And I guess it was a frightening enough warning for him to leave the city. Not only did he leave the city, but he didn't tell his wife and children where he was going. But clearly there was someone who knew, was a part of all this, and he wound up in Canada. He was in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
When Sarah heard from him, she didn't hear from him, she heard from a friend and someone who had worked in the factory that he was in Canada and he was well. And he was coming back. There was a job for him that his friends had found for him in Gloucester. There was a hotel that had a tailoring shop in the hotel. And he could come there and work there. So he was coming back from Canada to Gloucester, Massachusetts, to work in a hotel. And that he was safe and that he would be in touch with the family. Again, I don't know what the time thing was between the time that I would imagine it would have been to the end of the season of the hotel, which would probably have been in October. And he worked that summer period in the hotel where they had this little tailor shop. He made enough friends there among the clients so that he had custom work to make over the winter. And since he had assurance of that he would have income, he brought the family to East Gloucester and opened a store, a tailor shop.
Right.
And that was very successful. He had a clientele from not only the hotel, but from word of mouth to the other hotels, and these were extremely wealthy people and people who were accustomed to having custom-made clothes, and he had a reputation that after he made their clothes, after he measured them and cut them and fit them, that not even a button had to be moved.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the business that he established. And it was very lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point he brought his brother-in-law, my Uncle Sam, who was also a tailor. He brought him from New York, and he had his friend who had originally got the job for him in the hotel. He also came off-season and worked in the tailor shop. So that he had work in the wintertime, and he had work in the summertime. And of course, along came me about that in 1922, and that's the only day, those are the only days I have. Okay?
That's a good one. Where, I don't know if I ever asked you where, you said in New York he started getting into the union stuff. Where did his socialist politics come from?
Well, socialist politics he brought with him.
Oh, yeah?
I think he brought his socialism with him and it found a place. He came to a lady called Aunt Helen, who was living in Philadelphia And my impression was that she underwrote his coming to the United States, along with other people. And then from Philadelphia, he went to New York and worked. I don't know where he actually, what factories he worked in. But certainly, you know, at Aunt Helen's, this was a place where people talked union.
Okay.
And those were the very early years. I don't know what it was like in New York.
But you said he brought these politics with him? Was there stuff in Poland that was social?
In Europe, he was already, you know, already interested.
Yeah?
Yeah, because they were, so much of this was anti the politics that was present. I mean, he left the country because he didn't want to go in the Russian army. And he would have been drafted, you know, which was the reason he left. Morris Bell served in the army and then left. He was conscripted, served his time in the army, got out, went to yeshiva, and then was going to be called back in the army. That's when he scooted. That's when he left.
And he was in the band, right?
Yeah. And he was in the band in the Russian army. And that's when he wrote the music. You know, that's what we have of his time.